this is a good time to get into some of the housekeeping information that we wanted to start our conversation with. But we will have a series of in-person events this year, starting with two site visits, one to an industrial manufacturing site to look at their CHP system and understand how they went through the process of understanding and analyzing their energy needs, and then evaluating different solutions, and finally choosing a set of them. So that'll be at the end of May. And then we're planning on doing a site visit to a utility scale solar farm that was constructed from the first tranche of projects. And then later in this year, we will have our National Clean Energy Week event that we had last year in September. We're going to do it again this year. We will be planning with significant anticipation, which last year turned out it was a great success, but we'd like a little bit more time to put everything together. So we're starting earlier, and that'll be in September. And then at the end of the year, we're going to have a networking event, and so stay tuned to our emails, our LinkedIn. If you're not already following us on LinkedIn, please do so. That's the best way to see not only announcements about who we're going to be speaking to during the Energy Forum conversations, but also the articles that we're writing and publishing, our news roundup that's coming out here in the next couple of days, that is sort of the accompaniment to our Puerto Rico Energy in 60 Minutes, our monthly news blast, and sort of singular place to get all of the news with regards to energy in Puerto Rico in one place. And obviously announcements about these upcoming events. But so bringing that all back to our conversation, Ramon Luis, we need to have we're gonna have a band stage. We just need the right amp connection, and you and Tom can jam out. I think that's the perfect way to transition from closing remarks into happy hour. Um, and love songs are welcome. If you have energy themed songs, those are welcome too. We'll let's figure that out. Um, Tom, good morning
Good
or good
morning.
afternoon for
Good
you.
morning. I just stressing getting on between finding an internet connection and getting my VPN to cooperate to get me on. At least I'm here now. So.
Excellent. Well, we're glad to see you, and Frances, buenos dias. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, all.
So before we get into our main conversation, I mentioned some of the housekeeping. Javier put in the chat. Javier Velez is all things production and administration at the Puerto Rico Energy Forum. And he put into chat our LinkedIn page. Please give us a follow. It helps us get visibility and obviously helps you stay up to date with everything that's coming out of the Puerto Rico Energy Forum. We have a couple of other announcements that we'll make. There's a couple of events, not ours, but we're participating and supporting, that are coming up. March 30th to April 1st, there's an event called Uncorrelated Puerto Rico. It's focused on alternative investments in Puerto Rico. I'll be moderating a panel on climate and ag tech, and there's really a several day slate of very strong, insightful conversations that, if you're available the beginning of next week, you should join. Also, April 8th to 9th, there's an event hosted by Gulf Coast Energy Network called Power Up Puerto Rico. It's featuring heavily the Army Corps of Engineer and other government agencies that are focused on driving energy projects forward here in Puerto Rico. So those links are now in chat. Take a look at those agendas, and we hope to see you there. The first event that I mentioned, and this will be the last piece of housekeeping before we get into our conversation, I introduce our guests. We are planning on doing a site visit at an industrial manufacturing CHP facility. That'll be most likely a medical device manufacturer that relies heavily on quality power. This event is going to feature three elements. One is a tour and a presentation about the facility that we'll be visiting. The second piece will be a panel from different perspectives, from financing to the engineering to the client side, the asset owner, the developer, to really understand how did this successful project come to fruition? What are the obstacles that they overcame, and how do we make this type of project more replicable in the future? One of the things that we talk regularly about is it's not just enough to highlight success stories, but we have to make sure that we understand how can we have success more readily and not succeed and turn around after we cross the finish line and have no idea how we accomplished what we've just accomplished. And so understanding truly what are the obstacles, what are the barriers, and how do we overcome them is a key piece of what we're trying to do here at the Energy Forum. And that'll be a key component of that site visit in May. The third piece of that event will be an update from our microgrid development working group, and I see Allison Mason on the line, who's supporting with that initiative. We are putting together through the Energy Forum a roadmap that includes regulatory and policy recommendations for how to develop more microgrids, how to make microgrid development more accessible from the design and engineering standpoint, from the financing standpoint, from client relations and contracting, et cetera. And so that's currently that's available to members. If you're interested in joining, we highly encourage you becoming members of the Energy Forum and joining that conversation. We're always looking for additional expertise, technical knowledge, and greater capacity to support that initiative. So that will be an update that we get at the event. And if you're interested in joining, stay tuned for more announcements about that. That will be a CHP site visit. And Angel Sayas is joining right now. He's also part of that microgrid working group. So it's stay tuned for information. If you're interested in joining, let us know. Reach out to Tom or myself or Javier, and we'll make sure that you get involved. All right, Tom, anything I missed?
No, I think that was pretty good. Certainly the working groups that we have ongoing, people have made suggestions about working groups for other areas, which we're happy to support. We want to get them going. We just need to figure out who's going to lead and make sure we've got enough members who want to participate to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think without further ado, we will get started. My name is Sam Tallman. I'm Director of Energy Services for Green Power Technologies Puerto Rico and co-principal here at the Puerto Rico Energy Forum. I'm joined by that voice and face you just heard and saw, Tom King, founding director of Fundación Borencana, an organization that focuses on energy consulting, Access, a nonprofit that focuses on economic development, mostly driven by energy here in Puerto Rico. And we are joined by our guests today, Ingeniera Frances Berríos. Frances is an industrial and manufacturing engineer with degrees from the Puerto Rico Institute of Technology, La Universidad de Turabo, now part of the Ana Geméndez system, and Politécnica. She has served for more than 4 years as the president of the Professional Electricians Association and works as an energy consultant. And Ramón Luis Nieves, Licenciado Ramón Luis Nieves, an energy lawyer, a former senator who chaired the Energy and Water Resources Committee in the Puerto Rico Senate, as well as the Banking, Insurance, and Telecommunications Committee from 2013 to 2016. Ramón Luis is a graduate of Vermont Law and previously University of Puerto Rico Law School in Rio Piedras. Both Ramón Luis and Frances are members of the Jennifer Gonzalez, Governor Gonzalez's Energy Transformation Committee, and we're very happy to have you with us. So welcome back, Ramón Luis, and welcome to the Puerto Rico Energy Forum for the first time, Frances.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's jump right in. I know that we're going to talk about some of the strategies moving forward, but before we look forward, let's just take a look back. The recently elected governor assembled this 12-person committee to really prioritize energy development in Puerto Rico. Is there precedent for this type of initiative in Puerto Rico? It seems like energy has been a priority for a long time, but this is a relatively new model of putting heads together.
Not really. Previous governors had done that. I know that Governor Luis Fortuño, on his term, organized an renewable energy committee at that time. And as we know, Governor Fortuño enacted Acts 82 and 83 of 2010, which are the Renewable Portfolio Standard Acts that were recently amended, actually. And he really had that committee going on. Before that, other governors had committees on energy, and it is very interesting. Governor Pedro Rosselló in 1993 convened Energy Committee to prepare what became his energy policy. He did an energy, he approved an energy policy by executive order, not by an act of the legislature, which led to the cogeneration policy that led to AES and Electrica having agreements with PREPA. Later, Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla also had convened a committee on energy. So this is not so unprecedented. What is maybe unprecedented from Jennifer Gonzalez's actions is that she convened the committee before being sworn in, identifying the critical condition, particularly of the generation fleet of PREPA's generation fleet, the legacy fleet, and waiting for the critical condition that generation fleet will really cause on energy demand in 2025 summer, which we know is something there that's everybody is anticipating that it will become a really a big problem for the island. So she convened this committee. She announced this committee on December 15, if I don't forget, if I remember correctly. And then the committee was created by executive order in January.
And what is the mandate of this committee? Energy
Just-
transformation is a
Jump in.
broad term,
Yeah,
but
no,
walk us
okay.
through what's the mandate?
Yeah.
It's the objective is pretty huge. So it's not only one thing. So the first of all, she's the presiding the committee just because she wants to know in at the beginning have us as after assessors. So and she can have the input in this in that time and not wait until we make probably any documents and just read it. She just want to know by firsthand what is happening. So and so we have several things to do. We just, as Ramon says, we just started with the part of generation. We just stopped in the part of transmission distribution, and part of the goal is see what's gonna happen with Luma. So that's probably it's months apart and or aside of the situation, but probably what we're gonna do with the energy policy in the beginning right now. And let me see what else, Ramon. We have also, we're gonna look to see what happened with generation. That's the main goal right now.
So let's think about these initial legislative projects. Can you lay out what the principal legislative goals from the administration are, or at least from the committee, legislative recommendations are from the committee, and how does Act 1 work to accomplish those?
Yeah, we need to put some things in here. So we made some recommendation, but the end of all, and the legislation that is right now in process doesn't have any all the recommendation that we made. So the recommendations, we just make recommendation, and the governor and her allies around her decide which recommendation she took and which ones not. That's the main thing. So
Yeah.
probably my recommendations are not in that, yeah, and Ramon's also. So I know that for sure.
It's good that Francis pointed that out. Obviously, we are an advisory committee.
Yeah.
Our recommendations go before the governor, and we must stress that the governor has chaired every meeting that we had. So that's a sign of her commitment to this issue. However, the actual language of the legislation that became Act 1, 2025, and the other bill, which I don't remember if it already became a law, the exact language it was prepared by the governor and his advisors and Fortaleza, but it doesn't reflect all of our recommendations, as Francis correctly points out.
So, Francis, can you give us some sense of what
This is
recommendations?
like a disclaimer from our part.
No, that's fine, and we recognize
it
that.
There, I know for sure that there's several things that are they're difficult. Puerto Rico is in difficult situation right now in energy. That's and probably that's the main thing. So we have to make and sense that too. So it's not that we are saying that the registration is wrong or not. The thing is that, not for sure, we need to do something in case of energy in Puerto Rico. That's the main thing. So we don't want to go back with this new legislation, but we need to put things and make Puerto Rico available in an economy and every single thing that we need, and every single Puerto Rican needs.
Yeah. So, I mean, this may sound more like a reporter's question, and let me get a quick, and I apologize for that right at the top. But are all of the opinions of the committee eventually made public? You know, like Supreme Court decisions, and this is not to put it in the same category. You have dissenting opinions and you have majority opinions, and you know these are all recommendations made to the governor. Do those become public at any point? And then the second one is I think, first of all, I think it's great. It's the first time I've heard that the governor shows up for all of these meetings, and I'm just going to echo CP's comments in the chat, which is this is a great initial sign, if you like, in terms of the level of attention and importance. But let me just put it this way: if I was asked to serve on this committee, I would be concerned that whatever we did, we would be used as political cover for the governor and folks and whatever decisions they made. And so, is this a concern, or is this an ongoing concern? Is this something that gets managed? That's the reporter question in me. So,
okay, and that question is for me, or for
for you guys.
Yeah, for sure. We have not all the things that we talk in the committee. It's public, so we just can't talk about what is already public. So
Right.
we have to let her do her part. So that's the first thing, and I'm really glad that the committee it's made, and that we have probably a love person there that can help with the situation of energy and can illustrate not only the governors and other persons there. We have representative of the legislative side. So that's the only thing that we can talk. We can say that we made some recommendation, and it depends. It was for the Energy Bureau. So we have several, it's, I forgot the word in Spanish, and it's in English. preocupación. So we worry about
Worry.
how
Yeah.
the bureau it's working with the necessities of Puerto Rico. So that's what the main thing of the recommendations for the governor.
Regarding your
Good.
question on political cover, Thomas, uh, I've been burning in effigy a lot of times, so I don't mind doing it again for the sake of this cause. Obviously, the emphasis of this administration is not in support of renewable power. This administration came with a new policy of diversification, which is code for LNG. However, when I received the call from the governor's office, governor-elect's office, I didn't hesitate because I guess, as Francis was pointing out, it is important that the governor has different points of view, and the political risk is that things like Act One, which derail Puerto Rico's renewable energy goals, uh, so you have the political risk of people associating you with certain things, but that's part of the risk of being in a committee, you know? You know that there's an old political joke or old legislative joke that a camel is a horse that went to a committee. So that's those are things that happen when you're in committees. But um, I would rather that we be there with our diverse opinions than being on the outside. But I reserve the right to file my dissenting opinions when I can.
So, so you made a comment that
Healthy.
that diversification may be code for LNG. I think that there's often this euphemistic way of talking about things. We certainly tend away from the euphemism here in the Energy Forum, and the renewable energy project is really euphemism for solar. So let's think about the change with regards to this procurement process. The the recent legislation has suggested a 2,500 to 3,000 megawatt procurement process of baseload power, which is obviously a significant change from the tranche-based system that had originally gone through. Um, and just last week, maybe the 19th of March, the Energy Bureau ordered the Electric Power Authority to submit a plan that I've yet to see. I think it was within 5 days, so maybe it's coming up in either yesterday or today, to the Public-Private Partnership Authority to figure out a strategy to procure that much electrical power. Most of those, it seems like, are going to be large-scale, utility-scale thermal power plants, mostly with LNG is what I would anticipate. But Tom and I have talked about this, and we've talked about it on the Energy Forum. That process, well, I think opens the door to a greater variety of projects to bid. It doesn't. It still has similar hurdles to overcome, namely the counterparty is bankrupt. So, what is the vision for how we continue to procure or begin to procure competitive energy projects in Puerto Rico while PREPA is still in bankruptcy?
First of all, maybe we shall go back to discuss briefly the major policy change that happened because it deals directly with your question, Sam.
Perfect.
First of all, for 15 years, since 2010 until last week, Puerto Rico's energy policy was to integrate renewable power to displace fossil fuels from an energy mix until we reach 100% renewables in 2050. That's the energy policy that was amended by Act 17 of 2019. Well, that was the policy. Obviously, Puerto Rico did not reach the targets, the renewable energy targets that we had placed since 2010. We didn't reach any target. We failed to do so. We can discuss the reasons later, but the fact of the matter is that the law did not have the flexibility to allow for the regulator, for the Energy Bureau, to allow for certain repairs improvements and conversions to LNG in PREPA's legacy plants. And that led to a misunderstanding on PREPA's part and other people's part that the Bureau was being inflexible because they wanted to. Maybe they did not read the law or understand the law, that that law did not provide for the Bureau to have the flexibility to allow for those repairs. So that led to a public discussion and controversy, and several spokespersons against the Bureau, which to this day say, oh, the Bureau is the reason why Puerto Rico's generation is in a crisis. And that's false. Having said that, what is true is that the law did not provide such flexibility to the Bureau. So the recommendation of the committee was, hey guys, we have not reached any of the goals of the RPS. So, and some of us suggested we can do away with those renewable energy targets, but we can then create a mandate in the law. So the Bureau is empowered to define the RPS targets from now on, because obviously the Bureau is a better position than the legislature to have all the facts before them in the integrated resource planning process, which, as you know, takes is done every 3 or 4 years. So that was one of the recommendations. What the law actually did is, let's do away with the renewable energy targets and let's talk in 2050. So it didn't give a specific mandate to the Bureau or to anybody else to define renewable energy targets from now to 2050. However, on the same date that the law was signed by the governor, the ink was not yet dry on the law when the Bureau enacted a resolution and order saying, hey guys, we need to procure close to 3,000 megawatts of fossil fuel power. And my first question was, guys, but if you're already saying that what we need to do is to procure 3,000 megawatts of fossil fuel power, why are you going to do the IRP process at all? Well, you already reached a conclusion of where we're going. And I'm pretty worried that those changes in the law are interpreted in a way that the government just moves towards embracing fossil fuels again and ignoring renewable energy projects. That being said, the resolution and order of the PREP states that all of the projects that had agreements for our power purchase agreements, if you add them up, all up, it will lead to maybe 30 or to 40% renewables. I don't agree with that number, but if we connect all of the projects and when we reach 25%, that's a good number to have in renewable power at this point in time. But what the resolution seems to say is that, guys, don't worry about renewables. We already signed agreements. If we connect them all, we'll reach a decent enough number so we can forget about renewables and just embrace fossil fuels yet again. So that's part of the issue. Interestingly enough, even though the majority legislatures closed the door to having discussions about possible amendments to that act, which is I can testify to that. Representative Victor Pares just announced yesterday that he's going to file legislation. He filed a bill to allow for the Energy Bureau to define the renewable energy targets every 5 years. My question is, why didn't he authorize that on this law, as was suggested? But that's another matter.
Yeah. So, and I think that there's a complicated overlapping of time horizons here, which you sort of alluded to. Before I ask a question about that, if you have questions, anybody who's on the line and listening and watching, feel free to put those into chat, and we'll get to them as we can. it seems like there's a real challenge of horizons here, right? The IRP is a 3 to 5 year process. The renewable energy targets is maybe a 25-year horizon, right? Let's come back in 2050, as you said. The political horizon is much more short term. And then as you started, Ramon, the this summer is the the next thing on the chronological timetable, right? It's around the corner, and the projections for generation and availability of power are I don't want to say dismal, but they're not optimistic. And so there is a sense that renewable energy is a nice to have, energy is a must have. And if we've had, I mean, there are utility scale solar projects that can and should come online. But at the end of the day, baseload power is what's going to accomplish the reliability that will not necessarily help this summer, because it's going to be again, even the Energisa project, which we can talk about, is going to come online at the end of 2028 potentially. Battery projects that Genera, and we just had a great conversation with Daniel Hernandez, the VP of Operations at Genera, the battery and energy storage solution that they're implementing across 6 different plants across the island, that's coming online at the end of next year potentially. So there's a gap in terms of the IRP being a useful tool for addressing today's challenges or this summer's challenges. How should we understand those overlapping timescales? Is the IRP at this point just an exercise in sort of curious academic study?
Or is it a plan? Because you have to have a plan in order to divert from.
The thing is that the governor and the government have to just move on, even that we have IRP. It's not that we put it aside. The situation is it's real. We have a situation for generation, and just because the Bureau is much conservative and didn't allow several projects that place Puerto Rico in the place that we are right now. So I can talk for her or for the governor. I'm just saying, by my side, that it's true that we have an energy issue. It's not that we're putting aside the energy renewable or the renewable energy, but we have a situation and we have to work with it.
Yeah, it's my sense so far that while there's still a lot of political noise around Luma and everything else going on in Puerto Rico, and it's inherently political, but that governor has taken and her administration and even the Senate and the House, they're embracing common sense, right? We're faced with a situation here that for whatever reason we need generation, we need energy, we don't have it. We can't afford to only look at renewable energy and providers to meet immediate needs or needs going forward. So we're allowing ourselves, and this is from someone who's made his career in renewable energy more than 20 years, to allow ourselves to use all the tools at our disposal to bring energy and economically relevant energy to the people of Puerto Rico. And so I feel that that's more of the driver of this than a disdain for renewables or a love for LNG. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is. It is the challenge, and the thing is that at the moment that we were doing the assessments of what we have, and probably Ramon Luis already knew about the reality of Puerto Rico. I can say by my side that even that I'm in the media for energy and I know a lot of things, the reality it was different. The reality that we have at this moment is different, even that is case by the government, even that is case by someone or by the Bureau, Energy Bureau, because I'm not in I really believe in the 17 law. So believe me, that was my, and I always say that. The thing is that the inflexibility of the Bureau for working and approving things just place Puerto Rico in the place that we are right now.
Right.
So, and we need to work with that.
So let
And
me,
that's the main thing that if you get in the, and I'm putting the hat of governor in this place, in this time. If you right now, and you're gonna see that what I talked or what I said that radiography of energy situation in Puerto Rico, you have to move on. And every person here know that theme didn't work or didn't help the last governor. So she have to move on with that and make it happen.
and so we've talked about
Sam, sorry to
Go
interrupt,
ahead.
before we go further. I just have to disagree with my good friend Francis. One thing is what is being said on the media, and the other thing is reading the resolutions of the Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
The Bureau doesn't have an agenda against, they didn't have an agenda against or for renewables or for, they don't have their own agenda. Their agenda is set by law. That's something that must be understood here. This is not as happened before 2014 when PREPA did whatever on their own, and the governors did whatever with the energy sector. We live now in a regulated uh, 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 environment, or a regulated environment, and the regulation and the decisions set by the Bureau are done according to the law. What I have explained is that the law did not give the Bureau the flexibility
Mm-hmm.
to allow PREPA to do whatever they wanted. And you know what? I have learned not to take what PREPA says. Everything that PREPA says, I have to take with a grain of salt.
Okay.
And I know this by experience, and I know this because they bankrupted a monopoly, and we're set to pay $8.5 billion because of their actions. So I cannot forget about that easily. Why is the legacy generation fleet as it is right now? It's not because of the Bureau. It's because of PREPA's actions
Yeah.
and failure to act throughout the years.
Let me clarify, Ramon Luis.
You know,
I'm not talking about the inflexibility of the Bureau. I'm so sorry about it's the law, but they made it, they have a chance. They have the chance, and it's in the law to make 50 and 50. And they didn't approve anything. And that's history. So, and that's
yes,
the
we can look at the
yeah, and that's the main
resolutions.
thing that we're having right now. Even in, I'm talking that we already have a system, a generated system that every single people here knows that it's really old and we need to move on. And what did the government do for that?
So let me jump in here, and I think that we have one of the broad underlying challenges is having sort of a legislative vision of what's going to happen over energy and a strategy for how to achieve it. And one of the areas, Ramon Luis, you and I, when you were on the Energy Forum last, we talked about this, that when there was a legislative mandate to phase out AES, there was nothing that ended up getting done to prepare us for the day they decommissioned, and we saw that in this Congress, this Senate, that they basically knocked down the legal barriers for them to continue to operate. Now, AES is in a privileged position to negotiate a premium energy rate for the power they produce, not least of
Yep.
which is because it's hard to invest in a plant that only has a 5-year lifespan, or has already faced some operational and maintenance challenges because they were anticipate phasing out at the end of 2027 anyway. And we've talked about, you mentioned the large debt that now continues to not now continues to loom over whether it's PREPA or the ratepayers, all the above. The fiscal plan that was just approved by the FOMB does not exactly lay out a strategy once again for how that will be paid. So, rates are going to go up. Should we just get comfortable with higher rates? How do we, what is we need AES to continue to operate. The legal barriers have been knocked down. My understanding is they're now in contracting negotiations to understand exactly what that looks like for their continued operation for an additional 5 years. But rates are going to go up one way or another. And this all at the same time where the grid continues to deteriorate and PREPA is still in bankruptcy. So maybe just reflect on that blend. AES's continuance is a major piece of the legislative agenda for this cycle.
Yes, Puerto Rico's the history of Puerto Rico's energy policy is of great energy policy and failure to there's a disconnect between the language of the policy and the conduct of the governments to implement such policies. In 2019, the legislature sought to prohibit coal-based generation going from 2028 since 2028. That was a major policy and a progressive policy position from Puerto Rico's government. However, the legislative intent was that from 2019 to 2028, there was going to be a substitution of the capacity that will be lost from the coal plant. And the AES coal plant it has a capacity of, I guess, 450 megawatts. Puerto Rico had to substitute such capacity during those 8 years. Three governors went by, three governors, and they didn't do anything to substitute such capacity. Hence, when a new government came in, Jennifer Gonzalez government, she said correctly, guys, we are 2 years from the 2028 prohibition.
Sound the alarm, right?
And let me tell you something else. AES as a company has a global strategy to go away from coal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and also I have to point out that AES management has been talking to the government, to PREPA, for years, saying, guys, we have other proposals, because that same law allowed for AES to have an expedited process for them to propose another type of generation.
More flexible, yeah.
Yeah. So they could in their site, maybe they could have retrofitted the site for it to become to build a LNG plant plus solar and storage, for instance. And three governors went by and they did nothing. So one of the first things that we discussed in the committee was that issue, and it was a no-brainer. It had to be extended. Some of those didn't want to do it. I know the company didn't want to do it either, but here we are. And as you correctly stated, Sam, this puts AES in a great position to bring their prices up. And mind you, until the other day, AES was the cheapest generation that PREPA acquired, PREPA purchased, sorry.
Yep. No, and I think, I mean, and don't forget that there's also a long-standing looming environmental issue. Some of it greatly exaggerated, but a lot of it very real. And certainly this problem doesn't go away if the plant closes down or gets extended. And while there are a lot of fingers and different places to lay blame, some of that is bound to come back on AES. And they are in a great position right now to lock in some protections from future fines, future legislation, et cetera, which from an environmental standpoint shouldn't have happened, but because they're in this position, they can't. I don't know that they will, but I got to tell you, if I was a corporate, I was on the board of AES, I would be telling them to try and see if they can get as much protection from potential, environmental costs associated with the plant going forward in this process as well. Or maybe if I was their lawyer, maybe not necessarily their on their board. Francis, I want to come back to something that you put in the chat, because I just want to use to raise a topic. Is I personally, and many people, I think that despite certain shortcomings or inability of resource, the PREB has actually done a really good job and an important, it's played an important role in Puerto Rico. There's a difference between following the law and acting out of self-preservation. And it's important to note that even with the changes, the energy regulator is not as independent in Puerto Rico as it is in other cases or in other jurisdictions. And I think it might be a reflection. I think you called it a conservative decision. They were reading the political winds. It's very unpopular to talk about fossil fuels or LNG or gas or other things within government and within Puerto Rico. And so I think in not considering the other proposals or accelerating certain fossil fuel or other proposals in order to feed the energy gap, they were probably acting more out of self-preservation and in a political fashion than just being conservative about whether or not they had approval under the law. And I think one of the questions for that is that I don't think they ever asked the legislation or any governor to actually clarify what they could or couldn't do in this regard. So it's like a lot of things in Puerto Rico. I think it's very complicated. But I don't know if I'm understanding your comment or question, or whether maybe you guys should make clear what I just said.
Yeah, what I just said is that the regulator made conservation decisions on proposed alternatives, even that the alternatives are for fuel, so they're not renewable energy. That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right.
Even that I don't like them, but when I look things in out of the box, and I see things in not in minors, not in a little piece. Not I look at things. I open my mind, and probably when you're looking to things in Puerto Rico and about energy, you have to see it all, not just little pieces. Probably they have a lot of work, and I know for sure that they have it. They don't have all the resources. So, and when we met with the president at that time, that's what he said. We have a lot of work. We have a lot of situation, and the law doesn't help. That's what he
Well,
said.
I think that, and to push back on Tom a little bit here, the Energy Bureau is created to not be caught up in that politicized process. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, all the more important role of the legislature. And I know that the Energy Bureau, the commissioners already have plenty of arrows in their back. They make decisions that are unpopular to some people, and then make other decisions that are popular to the same audience. But if they need to make politically unpopular decisions, they need to make those absent what the political consequences are. And that depends on having a legislative branch that can support the independence of a regulator. COC, if they make a good politically unpopular decisions or not, they need to have sort of the space to do so. And I think that's sort of the purpose behind them. I have a question about the Energy Bureau, and we'll get there in a second. But before we get there, the grid modernization team from the Department of Energy is on the island this week. My understanding is that the Loan Programs Office has signaled that it will honor Tranche 1 commitments. And can you talk a little bit about what is the strategy to for local government to work with new federal government, particularly when it comes to energy?
Well, I guess something, it was kind of ironic that we have the DOE team meeting with the governor, the government, since yesterday, I guess, when the secretary of the DOE was saying several nice things about Puerto Rico before President Trump yesterday.
Mhm.
Uh, the secretary of the DOE basically told President Trump and the world, obviously, that because of President Biden's emphasis on renewables, uh, Puerto Rico didn't get to do the reconstruction of the grid. And that's false. That's a lie. And
Of course it is.
one thing doesn't have to do with another. The federal government assigned, the Congress assigned FEMA mostly close to $18 billion for the reconstruction of the grid.
Yeah.
And Trump authorized those funds in 2020.
Yeah.
5 years passed by, and the combination of bureaucracies between FEMA, the government of Puerto Rico, and others caused what we have right now, that nothing relevant has happened in the reconstruction of the grid. Having said that, Congress also assigned $1 billion, as we all know, to the DOE to create a program for low-income residents in Puerto Rico. And the program has been working. And one thing doesn't have to do with the other. I'm worried that that kind of thought process from the Secretary of the DOE could really derail the funds assigned for the reconstruction of the grid, which will be a disaster. And obviously, as we all know, the amount of money of 2020 is not the same, has not the same value right now in 2025. Costs have gone up, and some people have valued the actual cost of reconstruction for almost the same amount that was assigned, double that amount. So we have a big challenge there, and obviously PREPA is still in bankruptcy, so we cannot go to the market to borrow money for the reconstruction. So those are difficult policy decisions that we are facing right now.
So, first of all, I think you should be really, really happy as in Puerto Rico, because until I heard Wright making that obvious face-saving lie argument, I was worried about the same thing. And the truth is that with that little face-saving, blame it on Biden that things haven't moved forward, I think that means that most of that money is can be safe, right? That it will be spent for face, that it won't be gone after. You throw that up there and say that it's a good idea, you approved it, but Biden failed on the execution. And now we can go back and focusing on it's obviously not the main holdup. What you mentioned at the end in terms of bankruptcy and lack of access to working capital and other investing capital, building up reserves, building up the capabilities. That's the main holdup in terms of the transmission and distribution. Generation is another case, and bankruptcy holds it up, but there wasn't a great deal of information or money assigned for generation. So I think we're all kind of figuring that one out as we go. But
So Francis, what is the strategy then for, or how do you guys understand the strategy for local government to work with the federal government? If there's a lot of funds that are yet to be fully deployed, the costs are going up. There might be a misalignment in terms of the vision of what the federal government wants to see and what the legislative policies are on the island. What's the strategy for those two entities?
I believe that the strategy right now is to get meetings and meet all the people, all the protagonists all the people that they have the empowerment for that. So their letters that were sent, their vision that they're doing, because we know that the funds are jeopardized. We already know that. So that's not a that is not, it is in the play. We know that already. So that's the main thing, just to move. And yeah, we already know who's the secretary of and of energy. We have meeting with the DOE and try to help and retain all those funds.
So let me just make a final announcement here before I ask a final question, because I know that we're about at an hour. Our April programming, we already have a full calendar. We'll be speaking on April 17th with Ariel Morales from 2G Energy. That's at our Power Hour conversation. We'll be speaking with Dane Bonson from Boundary Stone Partners at Puerto Rico Energy in 60 Minutes on the 24th, and Edalia Gonzalez about the IRP process on the 29th at our next April General Forum meeting. Stay tuned for information about those conversations. We look forward to having you with us. Final question, and I think this ties together the independence of the Bureau, federal funds and priorities, grid reconstruction, access to capital, the financial capacity of Luma or the grid operator or the utility writ large. What's the future of net metering in Puerto Rico? Whoever wants to take it, go ahead.
Estás on mute, Francis.
Go ahead, Francis.
Yeah, you can answer. Sorry, I have to answer something here.
All
I
right.
didn't listen to the question.
Well, I guess those are two questions, Sam. First, the issue of net metering, and second, the issue of
Okay,
the
net metering.
the Bureau. Regarding the issue of net metering, there are several things happening. We are waiting for the decision of the court. Several months ago, all the parties submitted their motions, responding to the motion for summary judgment. So the court is in a position to solve the issue. That issue will probably get appealed, whoever loses the case. The Bureau has not yet commenced the process, also resumed the process. They have, as some of you know, the Bureau obtained a draft of a study on the impact of net metering. So the docket is already open, but I guess the Bureau is waiting for the court case to get solved in order to start a proceeding before then, so they can make a decision on net metering if that's what happens. Regarding the independence of the Bureau, Puerto Rico, we must consider this. Puerto Rico did not have an energy regulator until 2014. When PREPA was created in 1941, it operated as a self-regulated entity since 1941 to 2014. And that was a huge mistake on Luquetti's and part, in my view. Although that was the thought process at the time of creating the public corporation that was self-regulated. It is an interesting fact that before 1941, the Public Service Commission actually regulated rates over the energy sector, the private and public rates. Very interesting. But that ended the self-regulated condition of PREPA ended in 2014. PREPA has always hated having a regulator.
Regulator.
They protested the passage of the law. I was there. I have the scars to prove it. And they don't want a regulator, and that's one of the reasons why some sectors have been trying to attack the regulator, say that they are not experts, that they don't know nothing, that whatever. And what I could say to everybody that's in this call, read the resolutions, read the things, the dockets that they have been working on. We can obviously, they're not perfect. They're a human institution. They have only 10 years of experience, whereby similar regulators in the U.S. have 100 years of experience. So the culture of regulation is different from what we had before. So we need to make a decision if we want to continue with a regulated environment here in Puerto Rico, or do we want to go back to the time where a couple of people in a dark room decided energy policy? So that's one of the decisions that we must make. The legal landscape of Puerto Rico, of Promesa, favors in theory having an independent regulator, but the problem is not the theory, but the actual practice.
Francis, I cut you off earlier as you were making a point, and so I want to get your thoughts, and you'll have the final word here. Um, Anything that Ramon said, my question,
No,
anything you'd like to?
I agree with Ramon. That's a main question that we should make if we wanna go back to the back rooms or we want to have a regulator. I believe that even that the Bureau have opportunity and the law have opportunity, we should have a regulator.
Yep. No,
Great.
and in fact, that was the point that I was making earlier, is that I think we need to ensure the independence of the regulator by, preferably making changes to the way that they're appointed and can be removed. Too much power still resides, I think personally, with the governor, et cetera. And while I can't prove that's the reason, I mean, that can cloud the judgment of what they act on and when they act on it. So I think, it'd be good to have even more independence. One of the things I used to read every thing that came out of the regulator, and I still get it, and I still keep copies of it. I think Sam used to very much do the same, but frankly, it's just gotten too busy. And one of the things that he and I have been talking about it, and what I tried to do many years ago, but we frankly lost funding in the middle of it with the pandemic, et cetera, is to have a group that would look at everything that the regulator is doing and be able to provide summaries, of what's up, what's the docket, make sure that things are tracked. I mean, I don't see anybody doing that and providing kind of an analysis or inside baseball summary for people about what's going on with the regulator. And we thought
Well,
about
and Tom, I mean, if the Energy Bureau is not using 100% of their budget, I would love to see some of that dedicated to making what's
yeah.
coming out of those dockets a little bit more accessible for that exact reason. That doesn't, we can do analysis of it, and we can do, some of the punditry that we do here at the Energy Forum, but it'd be great to hear from them on what is going across their desks and why it's important, the way they've issued orders, resolutions, rulings, final resolutions, whatever it might be. It would be great to see that
Yeah.
a little bit more accessible, even if it was a search function on their website. There are minor things that would make it significantly more user friendly for
Yeah.
a community of people that are have an appetite for what's coming out of the regulator. I the I know that we're out of time. Ramon, Luis, Francis, thank you very much both for joining the conversation today. I hope this is not our last conversation. You're always welcome back on the forum, and one of the things that we're doing through the Puerto Rico Energy Forum is publishing a series of articles, whether it's on procuring energy and the challenges. Ramon, Luis, you mentioned earlier the disconnect between having goals and actually executing them. That's sort of the essence of the piece. We're going to be talking about the IRP. We're going to be talking about net metering. Tom has hounded over and over again the importance of and principality of the PREPA's bankruptcy. And before we get out of that, so many other things are hard to design productive strategies for. So would love your engagement. I know, Ramon, Luis, you're always on LinkedIn publishing your analysis and your thoughts. You're regularly both are regularly in local newspapers. So would love if you agree to let us know. If you disagree, to issue a rebuttal. A forum is defined by the engagement of its members, and so we invite you to continue to participate, and really thank you for sharing your insights about the Energy Transformation Committee with us here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right, with that,
Thank
I
you.
think we'll close, and we'll speak to you all soon.